Mornings with Mitch Elliott
on 101.9 KINK.
Kevin, thanks so much for getting up early for you, I'm assuming.
No problem. It's not too early. Not these days anyway. I'm trying to get up earlier these days.
Yeah, it's tough when you don't have to sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like, I love a sleep in. I'm slowly realizing that I'm a night person, not a morning person.
I've done morning radio most of my life,
but,
and I too am a night person.
Wow.
So the album Slow Rush is available now, and so many of the songs are nostalgic while being hopeful and excited for the future, much like most of the world is feeling right now, Kevin. And obviously, the tracks were written and produced long before any of us had heard the horrible words COVID-19. But many of the lyrics are certainly relevant. I'm thinking of the track One More Year. Do you remember? We were standing here a year ago. Our minds were racing. Time went slow. If there was trouble in the world we didn't know. Is that kind of eerie? Is that kind of odd to you that so many of the lyrics just kind of fit where we are?
Eerie. Yeah, absolutely. Especially that line there, if there was trouble in the world we didn't know. You know, it's like I never like sort of am trying to be one of those songwriters that's kind of like trying to predict the future or whatever. I just sort of write about what's relevant to me. But it's really just a coincidence that it's the same. It's quite remarkable.
You promise if you can actually tell the future, you would tell us, right?
I would, or maybe not. Yeah, I mean, like, I've thought about that song a lot since, because a lot of people have mentioned it, have been like, man, it's crazy, those lyrics kind of, you know. And I think, you know, like, so this album is about like experiencing time and like thinking about where we're going to be in the future. But thinking about where I and like, you know, whoever is going to be in the future, not necessarily like the world. But I guess like now is a time when the whole world together is going, what the hell's going to happen? You know?
Yeah.
So I think like it just so happens that, you know, making a song about thinking about the future or like not knowing what, like being uncertain for the future, you know, it just seems to connect those two things.
Kevin, you and your wife, Sophie, had to make a big decision in March. Should you quarantine in LA, where you spend part of your year, or do you go home to Perth? You went home to Perth. Do you think you made the right decision?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like in Perth, we got really lucky because we had some coronavirus and then we did the whole lockdown thing, and we haven't had any for months. So like it's by some miracle, Perth is one of the few places in the world where we've life has kind of almost returned to normal. I mean, everyone's sort of, you know, nervous about it coming back and all that kind of stuff. But
sure,
you know, for whatever reason, like obviously, I guess like the government takes credit for doing the right thing, and some people say we were lucky. But obviously, it's like tragic and really terrible how it's affected some parts of the world. So we're grateful. The way I see it is that for once in the history of Perth, like our remoteness has helped us.
Yeah, sure. You've been busy whilst quarantining, Kevin. I love what you did earlier this year on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Someone else said it better than me. The only thing better than Kevin Parker is 3 Kevin Parkers.
I don't know about that. But
and you're uniquely positioned. Tame Impala can perform with just you, several versions of you.
Yeah, well, that's kind of one of the things another thing I've been thankful for is that like something that I've loved doing my whole life, which is making music by myself. It's something I can keep doing. You know, it's kind of it's just luck, you know, because like I love making music with other people, but more so I love just kind of like spreading my mind and getting in my own head. So yeah, it's been good. Yeah.
You said once, Kevin, that you are not capable of doing an acoustic song because you hate your voice too much, which is bizarre. And you say your producer brain just immediately wants to flood it with sounds and noises and drum sounds. You still feel that way?
I do, but I'm getting better at forcing myself to do things that I don't naturally want to do. Because sometimes I feel like you need to do that in order to grow and evolve. And also, like, it's funny, I did an acoustic song for a couple of different things. So one of these like online performances. And And that's kind of one of the good things about this whole time in the world, is that I feel like anything goes. You know, like if you were going to try something that you kind of were apprehensive or sort of hesitant about,
Now's
the time.
Yeah.
You know, because like people aren't as, it's kind of like, hey, whatever, give it a go. Like if you're trying something, like adding to the pool of sort of art and media and like entertainment or whatever around the world, like that's what it's all for at the moment. It's not for each person stroking their own ego. You know, it's like there's kind of more of a communal feeling about it, I think.
Have you or your wife, Sophie, taken on a new hobby, learned to bake something new? That's been one of the big crazes here in the States, is people just went crazy making sourdough bread for some reason. You could not find flour at a grocery store back in the spring.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Wow. Wow, I love that. I'm not much of a food person myself. I haven't got much to cooking. I've actually been getting sort of like really into like I have this house down south and we're having to do some work on it, like fix the water tank and stuff, which I'm really enjoying doing. Just getting kind of like rural kind of farmer.
Good for you.
Getting my rural farmer persona on.
Is that how you grew up?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've always been a city kid.
And how are you learning to do this? YouTube? Do you watch DIY videos on YouTube?
Yeah, and also just like talking to people, which is really, it sounds so old school, like, oh yeah, talking to neighbors and getting advice. You know, it just seems it's so wholesome.
Well, speaking of talking to people, Kevin, you said once that one of your favorite sounds is the sound of a human voice, and a sound of a human voice during a conversation in particular. And you've even incorporated that into some of your music. I love at the end of the track, Tomorrow's Dust, there's what sounds to be a phone conversation. It's such a cool effect. You can't quite make out the words, so you can kind of put your own interpretation on. Is it a happy conversation? Is somebody in distress?
That's so great. You nailed it. Like, it's actually my wife. It's actually Soph. And it's a conversation. I'm not going to disclose whether it's a real conversation or not.
It sounds awfully real.
Yeah. Well, I love sort of like on an album, just throwing the listener into a room. You know, I just love that idea that suddenly you're just sort of a fly on the wall somewhere, you know.
Is it because we're all voyeurs?
Yeah, I also just love that stuff musically. I love I love kind of sonic simulation. You know, it's just something that just really does it for me. And she's talking about coming back from England. And like she's basically talking about the future and not knowing what she's going to do next. Which is obviously like a big theme of the album, and it just seemed like a cool thing to do.
It truly is.
I also don't often think deeply about reasons to do that kind of thing. I just had the idea. It just seemed like a thing I wanted to do, and then I did it.
I love it. Kevin, in normal times, you would have played the Moda Center here in Portland last month. Has it felt super weird not to be touring to support the album, or has it been a relief?
No, it's been really tough. Every time I think about, you know, what's funny, like my like calendar on my computer was set to the last touring cycle. You know, like you get notifications. Yeah. And for some reason it hasn't like update when my management updated the tour, that, you know, obviously wiped all the dates. It didn't like update on my computer, it hasn't done that yet. So like every 2 days a little thing comes up saying like tonight Montreal or something. And it's heartbreaking every time I see it, like, oh, you know, you know, like, man, I just wish I was there. And it's just, it kind of just reminds me. But yeah, I mean, I love playing Portland. I love being in Portland. So
we're running out of time, and I've been warned not to go overtime. What is bringing you joy right now, Kevin?
Well, I mean, like, I'm staying busy. I'm loving filming stuff, like music stuff, which I never really got into before. But again, I feel like now's the time to learn that kind of stuff. So I'm getting into
Sorry to interrupt, but you and Sophie purchased the recording studio and house where Tame Impala's debut album was recorded. So I guess if you live in a state-of-the-art recording studio, you're always working.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Getting rural. I'm here right now. That's the stuff I'm talking about, like trying to work out like gates and water tanks and stuff. That's actually what's bringing me joy at the moment. That and music, obviously.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time, Kevin. Best to you and Sophie. Stay safe, stay well, and looking forward to seeing you when you play Portland sometime in the very near future, hopefully.
Absolutely, definitely. Thanks, man.
Cheers, Kevin. Take care.